Hey guys, Eternally Optimistic here, starting up a new vlog series. This past month of September has been incredibly stressful for me. I don't know if you've heard what's going on with Adobe, but they recalled license numbers for all their CS6 users. They're trying to push the Creative Cloud, but it's been a mess because I rely on Adobe software for pretty much everything I do. Creatively. You know, I use Premiere to do all my editing, so dealing with that this month has been just very stressful. And on top of that, I have been sick for the past few weeks, and I'm just now starting to feel better. But that's why you haven't seen any videos from me this past month. I'm working to getting back into a regular uploading schedule. But in the meantime, I thought I would give myself something simple to do, just week to week, just so that I could have something to put out there. And I had so much fun with my How I Met Your Mother vlogs last year that I thought, why not start a new series? So let's talk about Forever.
My name is Henry Morgan. I work for the New York City Medical Examiner's Office. My life is just like yours, except for one small difference. It never ends.
I actually thought about doing Gravity Falls for this series because it's in the second season now and it's even better. It's amazing. But this is going to be a little different for me because I don't usually watch TV. I mean, I have shows that I like, shows I think are funny or interesting, and shows that I try to keep up with, but I don't generally enjoy watching procedurals. You know, I like stories. I like things with an arc, with a beginning, a middle, and an end. Watching just kind of random events into perpetuity is not really what I go to the media for. Not to rag on sitcoms. You know, I love lots of sitcoms, but it's just not my favorite way to enjoy storytelling. So I don't usually watch a lot of shows, or if I do, I usually get into them after they're finished, and I can just kind of sit down and enjoy the whole thing. But it's very rarely that I've watched a show from beginning to end and loved it. But the promos for this one caught my attention. And the first thing I could think of to describe the show was it's kind of like Doctor Who meets Sherlock Holmes. It's about a doctor who cannot die. He can be killed, but he just comes right back every time it happens, which is kind of an interesting take on immortality. But yeah, when he was 35, he was shot and thrown overboard at sea, but he came right back, and so now every time he dies, he just pops right back. And he's been on the earth for so many hundreds of years now that he's become an expert diagnostician. You know, he can tell pretty much anything about anybody, you know, just by looking at them, and which is where the Sherlock Holmes aspect comes into being. So when the series begins, he finds himself living in New York City, and he kind of falls into becoming a medical examiner for the police. So that's where the story picks up. First of all, a couple things that really drew me to the show right away. First, I love Sherlock Holmes characters. I love their monologues. I love how much they can glean from the tiniest details. And that's why I loved the BBC adaptation of Sherlock so much, because they didn't waste any time. You know, in the first episode, Sherlock is telling John basically his life story, and I love that dialogue, especially, you know, coming from someone like Benedict. Was great. And they did the same thing with Forever. I was so happy when Henry sits down next to that woman on the train and just starts going into, oh, when's the concert? And, you know, he speaks Russian to her right away, and she's like, oh, how did you know? And the other thing I've realized about myself is I love characters that have something to do with time. And I'm really interested in time travel and stories that incorporate that. Obviously, you know, there's no time travel, but the time obviously is an element. And, you know, Henry's always saying, I've got time, I've got plenty of time. And so it looks like basically what we're going to be getting from every episode is a murder mystery Henry has to ride in and solve the crime with his Sherlock powers. And I'm hoping this isn't going to be a thing, but it looks like we're going to get a once per episode of Henry dying, just by the nature of who his character is. They've established that to be a pretty big part of it. I'm kind of hoping it won't be, just because I feel like it could get old really fast, or at least have a couple episodes every now and then where he doesn't die. Even though I'm sure it'll be interesting to see all the ways that he could possibly die, and he talks about falling off a bridge into water is one of the most painful ways to die, and getting hit by a truck and what it feels like, and getting poisoned and all that. I really like the actor who's playing Henry. He brings this charm, of course, and this intelligence to the character, but so often you see with Sherlock Holmes characters and other really intelligent characters is that they're kind of harsh or sarcastic, not very good with the personal skills, and it makes sense when you see the world that logically. Sometimes empathy can be a bit lacking. But what I like about this character is he seems to be a little softer, a little kinder, and a little more able to relate to people. Although he does still have those walls, and it's got to be from living as long as he's had and seeing losing so many people that he cares about. So there are a couple things in the pilot that really made me think, oh, this is going to be something special. The first one was the villain that they introduced, which first of all was so creepy when you hear the voice on the phone, being like, I saw your death, that looked painful, like how did you survive, or my suspicions were confirmed, or whatever he said. And you instantly get this fear of, oh no, is it going to be dissected in a lab? What if they catch him? What if they find him? And how interesting that he does say that did happen to him at one point, that they took him apart and tried to study how he worked, and it made him extremely wary. But then to find out, on top of that the guy, the villain, is in the same boat as him. Or, so he says he's been cursed with the same affliction. Right off the bat, that's so much more interesting. And the fact that he killed, 2 trains full of people just to test and see if Henry would survive is just so incredibly sadistic. And it's interesting to see, on the one hand, I like stories where the hero and the villain are kind of opposite sides of the same coin. Like, the villain could easily have been what the hero could have become if he'd made different choices or if circumstances had been different. I love stories like that. So, on the one hand here, you have Henry, who's been around for years, but obviously known love and had people that he really cared about and still does care about, using his knowledge and his invincibility for good, to save lives and solve crimes. And then on the opposite side of that, you have the villain who has lived for so long that it's almost like he's become bitter, and human life doesn't mean anything to him anymore. And that just makes even more sense when you consider in the second episode how he says he's been around for thousands of years, much, much longer than Henry has. And when he called Henry a baby, it's like, oh man, this is going to be a cool villain. I'm already really intrigued to see where they take this. The other thing that made me think, oh, this is really something special, was at the very end of the pilot when Henry is handed that little baby, and you get the close up of the numbers, the concentration camp numbers on the baby's arm, and then you fade to the present day and you see that it's Abe. There's something so fascinating to me about that their relationship began with Henry being the older one and raising him, taking care of him, and now Henry being frozen in time, now Abe has aged too far past him. When they're introduced, it's almost like, Abe is almost like the Alfred, who watches over the young master of the house. But when they first met, their relationship was incredibly different. And I know, like, Doctor Who deals with that too, with an immortal character who keeps getting reborn, and the people who love him, who are going to die, who have to deal with that. But I can't think off the top of my head, at least a story that I've seen that's dealt with immortality, but by showing us but the age difference. I guess Benjamin Button, although I never saw that movie, so I don't know how the age was handled there. But so anyway, yeah, it's really, really interesting. I really want to know more about. Oh, because then we find out, that Henry was married for a while, and she knew about his whole never aging thing, but she was okay with it and just wanted to spend as much time with him as she could. And then they adopted this little baby together. And then, she died, and the baby grew up, and Henry stayed the same. And it's so sweet when Henry says, or when Abe says, we were a strange little family there for a while, and I want to know more. I'm already hooked in, so good job, writers, setting that all up. Oh, especially that moment. It was so great in the second episode when they're doing the flashbacks and they show, Henry getting attached to Abe, and then flash forward into the present, and what do you see? You see Abe feeding Henry, with a spoon, and it's just like, he's just saying, taste this, what do you think? But it was such a cool visual and such an awesome transition. I really liked that. It was really clever. So as a murder mystery medical drama series, it was really interesting. I like that it kept me on my toes. I wanted to know more. I wanted to find out what happened. The mystery in the second episode, Look Before You Leap, was really interesting. Just really liked the ultimate conclusion that it came to. I guess to appease the serial preferring part of my brain, it does seem that there is an overarching plot here with the villain, and I'm always wary. I don't like getting into TV shows because I don't. They run forever and then they end disappointingly, or it's hard to stay interested in them, and so I'm wondering, oh man, did I make a big mistake trying to get into this? But we'll see where it goes. And I guess one thing I didn't like about the show is how graphic it could be at sometimes. Like even in the first episode, they straight up cut the guy open and you see his organs, and you see, like, the skin folded back and the underside of his skin, and Henry reaches in and, like, scoops out. He's like, foam on the lungs. Oh, I'm a little squeamish, and especially needles. I can't stand needles. So when he got that poison out of the guy's body and told Abe to inject him, like, I had to look away. I can't watch the needles. Oh, and then what do we start off episode 2 with? The guy with the axe sticking out of his head. So they're not shying away from the visuals, which I'm not sure that's a smart move. Trigger warning, gore and body parts. But I feel like if the story is strong enough, you shouldn't have to rely on visuals like that. Just tell the story like it is. Although I did like the nice juxtaposition of, the guy with the axe sticking out of his head. They think that's obviously homicide, and he's like, no, it was an accident. And then the girl who seems to have jumped off the bridge, she's like, no, this was murder. So that was cool. So for me, the other big thing besides story is character. And I feel like already we have a lot of engaging characters. I like Henry a lot. He's your typical Sherlock Holmes, but maybe a little kinder and a little more caring. And I like that a lot. You've got the chief of police, and I can't remember her, or not the chief of police, the detective who recruits Henry to help her out, and I can't remember her name, which is pathetic. But I like her. She's a strong female character, but not seems well-rounded enough. I think it's interesting that at the start of the series, at the start of this story, she's just lost someone, and Henry being immortal, no stranger to loss. So it's interesting that they met when she was in that place. I really like Henry's assistant. Kind of like the nervous, nerdy guy. He seems like fun. Doesn't seem incompetent enough to be a butt monkey or just, oh, look at my silly assistant. No, he seems to know what he's doing. I love Abe. Great character there, and I can't wait to see more from him. I like the chief of police, the actual one this time, who we met in episode 2, because she's no nonsense, and I was so afraid at the beginning that she was going to be like, that she was going to be a stick in the mud about Henry, and it's like, oh, it's unorthodox or whatever, but at the very end she did say, well, he gets results, so if he keeps getting results, he can stick around, which was a nice conclusion. And I'm interested to see where they'll take her character. I guess my hope for the future of the show is that it can hold on to this nice mystery and intrigue that it's created, while at the same time developing a strong overarching story and staying true to these characters that it's introduced so far. One other big thing I'm hoping is that they don't ride this the quirky, mysterious guy who is obviously suspicious, but avoids detection just forever, because obviously this detective knows there's something up with Henry. The way he keeps saying, I've got time, and doesn't seem afraid of heights, or death, or crawling out on a bridge to collect evidence. She knows something's up, and I sincerely hope they don't dance around this issue forever. She's got to figure it out sooner or later, or you can't. I'm concerned that they're going to spend so much time together that it's going to be like, oh, she should be able to figure it out by now. Especially when the guy has the knife against Henry's neck and he's looking around at all the cameras and like, man, if I die here, everyone's going to see my body disappear. So yeah, I'm hoping they don't just like draw this out until it becomes boring to watch. Yeah, so I guess that's my biggest concern for the show moving forward. But so far, I'm really interested, really enjoying it. If you like this kind of Sherlock Holmes, if you like medical dramas, I definitely recommend checking it out. It has a nice balance between, there's this kind of softness about it. It's not like hard and gritty. But at the same time, they don't shy away from darker or more disturbing visuals. So I guess that is something to look out for if that kind of thing turns you off. But overall, good start. I'm excited to see more. Let me know what you thought, and I will catch you guys next time. Take care.
There's something you're not telling me. So Henry Morgan, what's your story?
Henry reaches in and like scoops out. He's like, foam on the lungs, and it just, I'm a little squeamish, and especially needles.